Ladies and gentlemen, the man song.
He's the man. He's the man.
I don't take no crap from anybody else but you.
Yes, dear.
I wear the pants
I'm asked
around
all
here
the time,
when I finish the laundry.
how do you stay married for 45 years?
I'm a guy you know
You
when I
subscribe to the man song. Turn it up a little bit. I don't know if Steve Aledort's ever heard this.
Yes, dear. Yes, dear.
You got it. He's the man. Well, he is. He's Steve Aledort. He's our loan financial planner, loanfinancialplanner.com. If you happen to be in the market to buy a home, you want to get pre-qualified. There's no question about that. Nowadays, the rules are more stringent. It's tougher. You need a real pro if you want to buy an investment property. He and I talk about that all the time. It's something I'm interested in, obviously. I'm also interested in a home. I've been renting, as you know, Steve, for the past couple of years, and everything you say is true. However, what I have found is if you're Jeannie Lucia and you move into a rental property, you go in and make all kinds of changes for the better.
And that's unusual. And
it's ridiculous is what it is, but with the
you said it.
We just got our deposit back from the last guy that we rented from. He moved in because he's going to sell his house after 2 years. Super nice people, the Changs. Very, very nice people. And it's like he gave us the Medal of Honor for keeping the house up so nicely.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
So the new folks, we had that discussion with them. So Jeannie said, well, if you trust my judgment, I'd like to change the backsplash. And I do this. So now we've got this new home that we plan on staying in for the next 2 or 3 years. We figure by then the market will have settled down a little bit. And maybe we'll buy again. I don't know if I should build or buy. Should I build or buy?
No, building, I've built. That's, you know, the lenders are coming back into the market as far as doing construction loans, but you got to really stay on top of it. It's not an easy process. You can deal with cost overruns.
Well, how much, be honest with me, how much were your cost overruns? You can use a percentage.
Well, I built in the absolute worst time between 04 and 07 when the market was hot.
You're supposed to be a smart guy.
Well, that didn't happen on that scenario. I probably spent twice as much as what I thought
Twice
I would.
as
At least.
Wow.
But the type of home that we built, it was, yes. So I'd recommend finding a home that you can move into.
Somebody else's nightmare.
Correct, or something that you can get at a good price, and if you want to, do some modifications. I mean, there's so many pros right now with the home improvement shows where you can see how you can transform a home in a shell without bringing it down to the ground, bring it down to the studs, or buying land and having to go through and getting all the permits and going through that whole process. Exactly. It's a crazy.
Well, speaking
crazy
of
process.
Studs, what do you got for me here, Stud?
All right. Well, real quickly, at the bottom of the hour, the difference between a 30-year and a 15-year. Being that I'm in California and do most of my business throughout California, a large percent in San Diego, my average loan balance is over $400,000. So there's a big difference in payment between a 15-year loan and a 30-year loan. And at this point, I mean, there's not a huge difference in rate, quarter point, maybe 3/8 of a point. So my preference is to put a borrower into a 30-year, show them what that 15-year payment would be, and have them take that difference and either make it as a principal reduction payment or put it into a liquid investment so that 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 15 years down the line, they can then take that money and make a large principal reduction payment instead of doing it on a monthly basis. So a lot of it's discipline. Some people will tell me if I don't pay it on the mortgage every month, I'm not going to do it. So that's what they need to do. If somebody's very disciplined, you can take that money, put it into a special house account, so you've got control over it. Because realize once you start paying down extra money on a home, you're paying it down on an illiquid investment. So if something happens and you need to get it back, you just can't call the lender and say, hey, I paid an extra $15,000 in principal, I want that back. You'd end up having to refinance. So there are ways to manage it, and I'll go through that.
No, I think I totally agree with that. You pay a little bit more in interest, but you have a lot more flexibility. And who knows when they lose their job or lose their health or something happens
Correct.
where their incomes.
Correct. Now, if you're in a different area where your loan amount's 50 grand, 70 grand, 80 grand, there's not that much of a difference in payment between a 15 and a 30 year. You might be looking at 100, 150 or $200. So if you can easily afford that, don't be dissuaded, but just realize the larger your loan amount, I think the more safety net you have in doing a 30-year loan.
Points. Do you pay them or do you refinance them?
Well, the difference
put them
is,
into the loan.
well, whether if you're doing a refinance, then you have the option of maybe putting it in a loan if you've got enough equity. If you're doing a purchase, you're paying that money out of pocket. So I'm generally not a big fan of paying points, but there are situations where it potentially makes sense. So I kind of put together a little example for us to get a clear idea on a mathematical level how to calculate. Does it make sense to pay points or not pay points? So let's take a $300,000 loan. Let's say a $300,000 loan, 4.5% at no points. 4.25%, it's at 1 point. 4.25% sounds better than 4.5%. So how do I do the breakdown on that when I show a client?
I got to pay $3,000 to get a 4.25%
To get
rate.
a quarter point lower in rate. So there are two factors for every payment. You've got your principal and interest, but to me, just as important is the amount of interest you're paying because that's your true cost of your money. So $300,000 loan at 4.5%, your payment's $1,520. You're paying $1,125 in interest. On a $300,000 loan at 4.25%, you're $1,475 on payment, and you're paying about $1,062.50 in interest. So the difference, the payment difference, is about $44 a month to get that quarter point lower in rate. The interest difference between the two is about $62.50 a month. So what I do is I look at pure payback. If somebody's just looking at, does it make sense on a mathematical basis, you take the cost of buying down the rate, which is $3,000, divide it by your interest savings, because that's your true cost of your money. And in this scenario, your payback would be 4 years. Does it make sense? It may or may not. I usually like to see a payback in a shorter period of time. A lot of it's predicated on what your plans are, how long you need to be in a home. Some people need the lower rate to qualify. So then it would make sense to pay points. If the payment savings of $44, and it can for some people, make an impact on your overall debt scenario and how you live on a monthly basis, then it would make sense to potentially pay the points down. And then we've got the psychological factor. 4.25% sounds so much better to you than 4.5%. So it's worth paying that point. But when does it not make sense? Let's say that $3,000 you could use to put in new shutters, that you could use to put in new landscaping. That would be a benefit where it would make more sense to go with the higher interest rate. In certain scenarios, generally not on conforming loans right now, is that we need to have money in cash reserves after closing. So that $3,000 could be in cash reserves, and then the psychological factor of, I want to minimize the cost of my mortgage. I don't care if I pay a higher rate. So there's a combination of a lot of factors involved on whether you pay points or don't. But usually when I'm working with a client, I'll generally go through a loan with minimal or no points.
So I just did some math. You know me, there's not supposed to be math on the program, but I just did some math, and it's about $53,000 over the 30-year life of the loan, right? Or if you took the $3,000 over 30 years and you earned 7% on it, it's like $22,000. So it's, it's money. It's like real money. But I would agree with you. I think that if it were me, I would rather have the longer mortgage and pay extra when I have the money, because in my life, it's always been this way. Whenever there was a really good deal on anything, whether it's a rental property, a home to buy, a really cool guitar, I didn't have money. And when I had money, it was the worst. It was like when you bought your house, when you built your house, I bought my house about the same time. And I lost my shorts on it, as you well know. But, you know, you don't think about downsizing when you're 59 years old. But when you're 65 years old, you're saying, you know what? The kids don't come over because they're not little anymore. They're teenagers. They're all playing sports and dance and all that stuff, and the house and the pool and all the cool stuff that we had, which was really great when they were younger. At this stage, they all have their own homes, and maybe they have their own pool, and they have their own time. It's really something that that people need to think through the emotional aspects.
Which is really true. And the last part, and I know we only have a little bit of time, up until this last 10-year period where we had a major decline in home values, I've been in this business for a long time. People were generally refinancing within 3, 4, or 5 years.
Yeah,
so
that's a good
that's
point.
one of the other reasons why I'm not a big fan of paying points.
LoanFinancialPlanner.com. We'll be back.